You want to go ahead and get started? That'd be great.
All right. Welcome to the October 15th, 2024 meeting of the Ann Arbor Parks Advisory Commission. This meeting is being conducted electronically and will be broadcast live on CTN Cable Channel 16 and online at a2gov.org/watchctn. To speak at public comment, call toll-free 877-853-5247 or another of the published numbers on the agenda and enter the meeting ID 960-2086-1136. Josh, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Bush, Commissioner Cavateo,
Present in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Kraut,
Hi, I'm sorry, figuring out how to unmute. I'm present in Muskegon.
Commissioner Marson,
Present in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner O'Connell,
Here in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Montague, Commissioner Prolowski,
Present in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Skylas,
Here in Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Smith,
Here in Ann Arbor.
Councilmember Radina, Councilmember Watson.
Here in Ann Arbor.
You have a quorum.
All right, thank you. You all have in front of you our agenda for today. Are there any changes requested? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. And so we are now at first public commentary.
And we have no callers for public comment.
Okay. That brings us to approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Those should be in your packet. Are there any changes or discussion about those minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting? Thank you, Larry. Second. Thank you, Therese. All in favor of approving the minutes, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And that brings us to our first presentation, which is our only presentation today, which is going to be given by Josh Landefeld, our Director of Parks, about the Ann Arbor Dog Parks update.
Thank you very much. Wanted to take a little bit of take the opportunity to talk with this group about some of the things that have been done in the past in regards to dog parks, some of the research that staff have done over the course of this summer, and then making a recommendation that staff would like to move forward with at the end of it as far as next steps. Because there's always a lot of interest in regards to our dog parks, and so this would be an opportunity to understand kind of the background, where we're at today and where we'd like to go in the future. So let me share my screen so that you can all see all the cute dog pictures somebody else put together for me. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right. So today we're going to talk about the Ann Arbor Dog Parks, how other communities have addressed the growing need in regards to dog parks, some potential short-term opportunities, staff's recommendations, and then next steps and questions from there. And the goal of this is to provide PAC with a background on our current dog parks and how we got here, understand some of the challenges that we face in regards to dog parks in general, from a staffing and a maintenance side, and then thoughts from staff on the next steps. Okay. So just a little information about Ann Arbor and our dog parks. There are currently 3 City of Ann Arbor owned operated dog parks. That is at Olson, Broadway Dog Park, and Swift Run. Additionally, as we were doing this research, we've identified at least 5 to 8 private dog parks that are at developments or apartment complexes, primarily on the south and on the west side. The Ponds, at Georgetown, Avent Apartments, Woodbury Gardens are just a few of those that have added dog parks to their property. Looking at national averages and through National Parks and Recreation Association, a good precedent is that there's 2 to 5 parks per 1,000 people in a city. So obviously we fall right in the middle of that with about 120,000 and 3 city-owned dog parks. Based on a formula from population data, there are roughly an estimated 7,400 dog owning households in Ann Arbor. This is just by a formula. There's no actual data on this because we only see that there's 1,288 dog licenses in the city of Ann Arbor. So there are individuals who may not be licensing their dogs, or there might be less dogs in Ann Arbor, but I don't think that that's the case post-pandemic. Of the 1,288 dog licenses, there are 460 dog park permits. So to understand this, in order to have a dog in the city of Ann Arbor, you should have a dog license that shows they're spayed, neutered, vaccinated, all of those good things. And then in order to get into the dog parks, we expect people to purchase an additional dog park permit that again speaks to the idea that dogs have their shots, are healthy, and understand the rules associated with them. So big disconnect between the 1,288 dog licenses and the 460 dog park permits. The cost of a dog park permit is not very high, but the total revenue that was generated for all dog park permits in 23 was $16,475 and some change, which is not a lot. The cost of operating expenses, this is kind of a little difficult to get all of the details in because sometimes our park operations do this on their routes. The county has historically done some of the maintenance on Swift Run, but as we've looked at the work that has been done and the contracts that the county has held in the past, it costs about $25,000 per year to operate the 3 dog parks in the city of Ann Arbor. So not quite bringing in the same amount that we are spending. Additionally, dog parks, we're having this conversation because dog parks and dog off-leash spaces is a frequently listed desired amenity, both in the pros plan as well as from residents that reach out to myself and PAC about providing more spaces for our dogs. A little history of dog parks. This has been a long history of conversation. In 1997, Ann Arbor formed its first dog off-leash task force. Found out some information, and it took until 2027 for the city code to be amended to allow off-leash dog play areas or parks. Following that, Swift Run Dog Park was quickly opened with a partnership with the county. The following year, Olson Park was established on the north side of town. In 2012, following these first 2, there was a proposal to add a dog park at West Park. That proposal was eventually rejected, and it was no longer pursued. But what it did create was the need for PAC to put together a dog park subcommittee. And between 2013 and 14, that subcommittee created the dog park report that is mine and staff's kind of basis for decisions regarding dog parks. They did a good job of looking locally as well as nationally for best practices, as well as putting up a criteria for the installation of new dog parks, permanent dog parks in the city. After that subcommittee put that report together, Broadway Park was identified as a leading candidate for a dog park, and that park was opened in 2016. To understand the costs of what goes into it, it's quite different depending on the amenities and the work that is needed at the park to create the dog park. Swift Run, being built on the top of the old landfill, cost the city about $163,000. Part of that is they needed to build up berms around the outside so they could put the fencing in, because they couldn't put drive posts down into the old landfill, as well as kind of creating the necessary amenities around there at that park. Olson Dog Park is a little bit on the opposite end of that. Basically, there was some unused space at Olson that was originally designed for something else, but it determined that putting a dog park was there. So the $8,000 of construction was basically for very simple fencing around the outside, and a few amenities on the inside. It is not a true chain link fence around the perimeter, but the entryway is there. And then the most recent one, Broadway Park, was a total of about $75,000 was the total budget for construction. That included all the fencing, a large of it with the large and small dog parks, as well as some of the amenities and getting some of the land prepped and ready to go for that. Broadway Park historically was a extremely underutilized park. So adding this definitely was designed to activate a park that was otherwise not utilized. So that gives you kind of where the city of Ann Arbor is. In my 2.5 years, the idea of dog parks comes up regularly. So it felt like there was an opportunity to see what next steps and what other communities were doing. I think that we have always had this idea that permanent, big, fancy amenities are the way to go. And so that's how much of the mindset of myself and staff as we thought about next steps were. This past summer, I was out in Washington, outside of Seattle. And this idea of a pop-up seasonal dog park was something that they were doing there. It was kind of in a median area between a major road and the park driveway. And they had put up a bunch of fencing and created this temporary dog park. The idea is that they knew that there was demand, but they couldn't quite figure out exactly where to put it. So they created this enclosure and made it a seasonal to drive data, see the actual need, and determine how to best serve the dog population in their area. As it says here, the advantage of a seasonal closure is that it's highly used, it's very popular. It ends up having a heavy cumulative effect on the park site, meaning that parkland the grass, the area quickly turns from nice grass into what you would see there. And then closing it over the winter gives the opportunity for staff to make improvements, clean out the space, and work to rebuild the conditions. Raleigh, North Carolina took this idea of a pop-up and made it even more of a pop-up. Basically, they have a pop-up fencing that they travel around the community, creating extremely small dog park areas at various parks. Very low maintenance, as it talks about, a couple days at a time. So you have something that's a seasonal with that to something that is very much trying to provide resources in a local community for a couple days. And then Denver kind of comes into the little bit deeper on that. So they set it up as a long-term pop-up. Their design was to have it open for an entire year. Smaller acreage than what our parks are, at about a half acre. They use chain link fencing, so much nicer fencing than kind of what's at Olson Park. And then they just didn't maintain the grass or the area inside of it in any regards, and it is turned into primarily into a dirt park, similar to some of our Swift Run and Olson in particular. Their cost to build this was roughly about $10,000 to build, primarily fencing. But one of the things that they did do is they reused benches and trash cans and other materials that they had left over from other projects and other spaces to kind of make this project move relatively quickly. Based on the success and the interest at this pop-up, Denver has plans to eventually transition this into a permanent dog park, primarily because they've seen active use. The local residents really enjoy it, and they determined that it was a good space to add the dog park to their inventory. They also have a nearby developer who is interested in providing funds for its formalization, because obviously, similar to projects in Ann Arbor, these developers understand that providing a resource close to their residents, especially dog park, is a good thing. So those are some of this idea that we looked at, some of these other communities, and as you kind of see, there is the very, very short term, very simple that Riley was doing, kind of a much more seasonal one that Bothell and Washington was doing, and then Denver having this kind of longer term process for transitioning a temporary dog park into a permanent one. So based on all the different kind of conversations that we've had, what we've looked at, the discussions we've had internally with staff and the things that we know coming on, there really are kind of three ways to move forward with dog parks. A brand new dog park, that while this may be the desired long-term goal, there are several challenges. They're much more costly. There's a much larger public engagement process, because there's a lot of places that would like to see a dog park. However, based on the dog park report that was done in 2014, there's some pretty limited options based on the previous engagement. When we talk about the needs and wants that a dog park to be successful, there's just a limited number of parks in our community that have those, especially on the west side of the city. The idea of a pop-up or mobile dog parks, I think this is an opportunity for us to develop some sort of fencing system that we can mobilize and move. I wouldn't say weekly. I would look more at a couple, go for a year, identify a couple parks over the next 2-3 years where there is interest, where it meets some of those needs, and have this idea of a pop-up or a mobile dog park that allows us to not just survey the local residents, but really pilot spaces in regards to the needs and the wants of that community and the concerns associated. The third option, and the option that I think is most prevalent and kind of what I'm going to spend the rest of this time talking about, is transitioning a current amenity into a temporary dog park, whether it be in season, off season. We have, with 2,200 acres, 800 acres that are non-natural areas. We have a lot of space that is underutilized at various parts throughout the year. One of the things that is regularly not used in the off season, so a November through April time period, is our formal baseball fields. We have 5 of them at Vets, 2 of them at Southeast, and 1 of them at West Park. The reality is there's a lot of infrastructure there that is similar to our dog parks. And if you drive past any of those or walk by or bike by or however you get from one place to another, you will most likely see somebody with a dog in those spaces, utilizing that area as a informal, off-leash dog park. The other part is I've spoken occasionally about this. Many of our parks are based on the trends and the infrastructure needs of the 80s and 90s. And because some of them are underutilized because of changing trends, there may be opportunities to look at infrastructures that we have in our parks and transition from something like baseball to a dog park if it is the right fit long term. So utilizing parks and materials that we have a little bit more efficiently over the course. So as we talk through this and talking with park operations, talking with staff, throughout our leadership, staff would like to make the recommendation of putting a seasonal dog park at field number 4 at Veterans Park. This is the easternmost field. It provides ample parking. It's close to neighborhoods. It's close to sidewalks and easily accessible from that area. It has lighting, which is something that none of our other dog parks have in regards to providing usage later in the evening in the winter. There's already the majority of fencing is set up. As it was mentioned, our goal would be to operate this from November through April. That is traditionally when these fields are not utilized by Rec and Ed or any other rental groups. I would also state that Field 4 is less utilized than the other 4 throughout the year. The idea for this first year would be to fence off the infield. What we have consistently heard from people with staff with dogs is that it would just be a big digging area, and that would require a little bit more restoration in the spring than what would take place in the outfield. So that is the main recommendation with that. This would give us an opportunity to really pilot a dog park on the west side of the city. It would allow us to utilize infrastructure that is already in place. We would work to figure out a way to truly track usage, whether it is through simple tracking sensors or by having multiple days out there with staff. We would also provide survey opportunities at the park to really gauge the want and the needs on that side. I think one of the things that we normally see is a small group of individuals that engage in wants like this. And so having this opportunity, whereas actually piloting something would go a long way. Our goal would be, if we ran this from November through April, would be to come back to PAC after the fact with a report on the actual usage, what we found out, and determine the concerns and the costs associated with it. And that would potentially help us determine, is this a viable option long-term, or do we want to look at something that is to develop a pop-up or mobile dog park for other options throughout the city? What those next steps would need to be would be transitioning the baseball from baseball to a dog park. As I mentioned, fencing off the infield, creating entry zones, which would be, if you're familiar with the baseball fields towards the warning track, there's already kind of a corner area that we would be able to create a in and out space with that. A big part of this would be communication with the public. What we're looking to do with this pilot, what the rules would be, how we would sign them at the park, and really create a communication of why we are looking to do this and how this will lead to different conversations in the future. Obviously, one of the things that dog parks create is more trash or different types of trash than what is normally there. So ensuring that we have a trash collection process that is consistent with our other dog parks. And then my expectation during this would be that dog parks would be required for use, as they are at our other 3 dog parks. And we would just look at adding this to the permit list versus making it an additional fee because of the temporary nature of it. That is kind of my quickly overview of what we're thinking. This is a pilot, this is an operational decision. You know, this is us operating the park. So there is the ability to do this within the staffing purview. But I believe that as a PAC, it is important for you all to vet this idea as we consider this as we move forward. So with that, I will take any questions from the group.
Thanks, Josh. Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, I think it sounds great, Josh. That field, I think, is more of a softball, a little league size field versus a baseball field. Is that the best choice of the fields at Vets?
So I use the term baseball generically to describe a diamond that a ball sport is played on. You know, I think that the part of the reason that I think that it is there, when you think what's along, what we saw when we looked at usage, from the 5 fields at Veterans, this was one that was significantly used less over the last couple of years. I think that its proximity to when you're along Dexter there is the baseball field, which is truly unique within our park system. We have 2 of them. We have that one in at West that is designed as a very specific sports usage. Fields 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all youth-based softball fields, youth or softball fields. So there still remains 3 fields there at Veterans, as well as the 2 at Southeast, as well as there's a many of our neighborhood style parks do have what can be utilized for youth or youth sports on that side. So that's part of the reason. It's proximity to parking along the transit road. There's water features there. There is a drinking fountain on that side. So there's a number of ones that are there. You know, I think fields 2 and 3, you know, I think the fact that my concern, if we ever looked at this long-term as a solution, using fields 2 and 3 that are right next to each other really create concerns between baseball, softball users and the dog park users. So there's the field 4 gives us a little bit of separation between park use as it traditionally is and this dog park. So
Ruth, do you have a question?
Yes. I like the idea of doing like a trial. Can you talk about like how are you going to track use, and also how will you promote it?
So I think there's a couple things that we have looked into. You know, there are very simple counters that we could put across the bottom. I mean, it's kind of a laser type thing that it every time you walk past it, it kind of clicks and gives us a use. You know, I think those are simple. They're not 100% accurate because people step over it. There's not a crossing of the line. It's similar to your garage door opener. You know, if somebody crosses that line, it doesn't come down. And then coupling it with, you know, some some on-site events, you know, having some staff or some volunteers do some things out there and really kind of targeting some promotion of those events to be there. And then, you know, really utilizing, we do have these 1,400 or so dog park or dog licenses. So reaching out through that method, you know, utilizing social media and a variety of different things to get that word out and communicate the purpose of it. And then on site having having QR codes for surveys for engagement on that side. I think that that's one of the things that we really want to continue to try to track is the desire, the wants that are there. Ann Arbor is a big city, big footprint. And so trying to get as many people to engage there and get that feedback in real time would be our hope.
One thing I wonder about is maybe with like the throne, you have to put in a phone number or something.
Mhm.
Like it would be good to maybe to capture phone numbers for follow-up for surveys.
Yeah, I think that there's two parts of that. I do think that I think that there's going to be a number of different ways that we want to engage with it. I think that if we create a survey online, that can be utilized from a QR code or from a link that's there, we can ask a series of different questions with it. It's the idea of having a pilot program where we get to see actual use. We will also get to see what kind of impact this has on the field. And I think that's a big component of it as well, to understand what are the impacts of it in the spring. But again, I think we're always going to look for as much information as people are willing to give to us. We also know that there's a challenge associated with the honor system in regards to requiring a dog park permit at any of our dog parks. There's not enforcement there, or there's no way to stop people without dog park permits from entering our dog parks at this point. There's been other conversations long term about looking at what some other communities have done in regards to a code or an app or some version of what they have to utilize to electric. They have the permit that grants them access to the dog park. So different ways to look to see how we can do that better.
Josh, I had a couple questions. You mentioned that there's a water fountain at that field. Would that be left turned on all winter?
We're gonna do what we can to. I think that there's gonna be some challenges associated with it, because of plumbing associated, the concern of freezing with that. I think that we definitely can do our best. Although we're having an extremely cold spring or fall, we can look to see how we can incorporate that. I do think that a long-term solution there is why it's attractive. But definitely trying to find a way for us to support having water there during that off season. At the same time, we don't have it at Olson or Broadway or Swift Run. So.
Okay. The other question I had was for obtaining the permit to use the dog park, can that be done online?
Yes. You technically can use A2 Stream. It comes through A2 Stream. You cannot, I'm not 100% sure on the process to get your tag if you do it that way.
The physical tag is required?
A physical tag is given, and it is the easiest way to document it. I renewed my dog's license, but not my dog park permit, because my dog doesn't do well in dog parks or with other dogs. So I haven't been able to do it on that side of it. So it is one thing that I am interested in looking at. Is there a way for us to simplify that? And so that there is documentation readily available. You can sign up for the dog park permit on site. There's rabies vaccine, there's other things that you have to prove that you are licensed as a dog or licensed to have a dog in the city of Ann Arbor, that would need to connect to the dog park permit, because that's part of what that does. But I do think that this day and age, there's technologies, there's options to move this a little bit more user-friendly to allow people to come into that. Especially at some point, if we look at doing any type of different gating system in our dog parks, what we would like to do is, if we have some type of electrical gate then having quick access to be able to get into and sign up for it would be great.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions for Josh?
Not a question, but more of a comment from the council side.
Sure.
I had Councilmember Cornell reach out and say that some of her constituents in Ward 5 had actually suggested Vets Park as an idea. So I guess I can vouch for some community support there and also council support on the part of the Ward 5 council members.
Thank you. I think I think it's important. I know that the west side is missed. It doesn't have it. You look at our 3 dog parks, they're all east of center of town. I think that why we're presenting this is, this group can sit and debate and strategize and try to find the perfect location for a period of time. Our dogs want to get out and enjoy some time, and we know that people are already utilizing it. And I think that it is a park where it makes a lot of sense. So I'm happy to hear that from some council members in Ward 5, as well as some users. And it gives us an opportunity to pilot. I think that's a big part of it as well.
All right. So we sent this afternoon, I should have received an email with a proposed resolution and in support of this pop-up concept at Vets Park, specifically at Vets Park Field 4. And I would certainly entertain a motion to approve that resolution if anyone feels so moved. Vince, is that you forwarding that resolution? Thank you. Is there a second? Therese, thank you. Any further discussion about the resolution or the dog park concept? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the resolution as written, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? I do not see any opposition, so the resolution carries unanimously. So thank you, everybody. And really looking forward to you coming back with some information about this dog park. It should be exciting.
Yeah, we will. What we'll do is we'll get the information together. Rec and Ed knows that this is probably coming, so that we will be working with them to ensure that their fall and spring dates are consistent with that. And then as soon as we get this opening day figured out, we will send it out to this group and have some fun out there. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Well, that takes us to item 7 on our agenda, which is reports. And we start with a report from our parks manager. So Josh.
Thank you much. So just for simple ones, the Gallup Bridge is nearing completion, with the potential of hopefully being complete later this week. We are scheduling a weather permitting ribbon cutting on Thursday, October 24th at 4:30 p.m. This invitation will go out officially tomorrow. So you are the first group to hear about it. We're very, very excited to make it work. It actually was utilized yesterday Sunday at the Trick or Treat paddle to allow some parking on the south side of the river for that event. So it was able to handle the crossing, but there are a few final things to be done. So really excited to get that project done. Hillary Hansel has had a long process of making this happen. So I know she'll be excited to get to that October 24th ribbon cutting. Speaking of park planners, I want to congratulate Adam Furco for the new addition to his family. Son Whitaker was born on October 5th. So we wish him and his family well. So we won't be seeing him for a couple months as he is on paternity leave for the remainder of the year. As I mentioned, the Trick or Treat paddle was this past Sunday. The weather wasn't great, but the fun still was there. So it is always a great event for anyone, especially when it's nicer weather. But when it's not great weather, it's still a lot of fun. With that, deliveries do close this Sunday, October 20th for the season. So another year has gone by. And then just the last thing, as a reminder, the Parks Millage is on the November 5th ballot. So please remember to flip the ballot to see the Parks Millage on the back side. That is all I have.
Thank you. All right, now we're on to committees. I'll start with RAC. Hannah, do we have an update from RAC?
We do. RAC met in September. Our probably main order of business was actually Josh giving us a presentation on the Parks Millage in November, which everyone here is very familiar with. We also had a presentation about the special education millage that's going to be on the November ballot. We had a summer recap of Rec and Ed programs, which still remain very popular, especially our summer camps and Safety Town. And then I'll mention that fall team sports registration is still open for the next couple of days if you're interested. That's it for me.
Thank you very much. And then I believe Environmental Commission is our only other committee right now, and I attended that meeting in September. We had a very interesting presentation on the regulatory framework around water in all of its forms within the city, and all the different governmental bodies that are involved in that. So that was kind of eye-opening. And that was our primary order of business. All right. So that takes us to any questions about any of those updates? No. Okay. That takes us to number 8, regular business. And we have Hillary Hansel is here to present a resolution to recommend approval of construction contract with T&M Asphalt Paving for the Bicentennial Park Improvements Phase 2 project. So I will hand it over to Hillary.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'll be presenting. This is really Adam's project. I'll be presenting since he's out. So I know he updated you all on this project at the last meeting. There's a lot of talk then about phase 1, which is the splash pad, the play structure, kind of the main active components of the park. What I'm going to talk to you about today is phase 2, which is really focused on improving accessibility and just the quality of access to the splash pad. So parking lot renovations, road, and then pathways. And so we put this out to bid in 3 parts. So we're talking about phase 2, which is outlined in the red. The first part is what we're calling the base bid. So that's the lower kind of southern parking lot currently paved, as well as the paved portion of the park road. We also bid 2 alternates to see how pricing would come back and give us some options. So the first alternate was the rest of the park road and the second parking lot. These are all gravel currently. And then, the second alternate was all of the sidewalks. So we bid it, kind of got pricing for all 3 of these to see how it would come back. So because we're using ARPA funds, it has federal restrictions to how it's procured and how it's bid. So we have to go with the lowest bidder. We're not using best value procurement. So the base bid, that first parking lot in green, a little over just about $330,000. The gravel park and road, which you need a heavier lift to get it done, a little over $400,000, and the sidewalks came back at $200,000. And so in looking at what we could take to kind of move forward in this, remembering that we have about $400,000 in ARPA funds available, we decided to move forward with the base bid and alternate 2. So we'll have a new parking lot and all new sidewalks. And then we'll take out of the scope for now the kind of gravel parking lot and road that can be done in a later phase. So with those 2 pieces, scopes of work, that brings our total contract amount to $532,000. And then, so just to remind you what we're looking at here, so we're going to do the base bid in green, alternate 2, the pink sidewalks, but not, what was formerly purple, not that upper gravel parking lot. So of the 532,000, we have our 400,000 from ARPA funds. So the remaining, so 132,000, will be coming from park millage funds. So really that allows us to fully use the ARPA funds that were dedicated towards this project. And we're kind of having that cover about a third of the sidewalk cost, and then parks is covering the additional 2/3. So it really helps us stretch our dollar and get more of that project completed. And then, yeah, one of the reasons we're here today is the ARPA funds have a restriction where we need that contract to be executed by the end of this year. But then as far as order of construction, we'll have the splash pad and kind of playground, all of that phase 1 work to be completed first so that pavement isn't damaged. And then this pavement will be done afterwards. We're kind of anticipating after Labor Day of 2025. So just so you know, since we're talking about it today, it'll be about another year until that work kicks off. So yeah, so that's kind of what we have here. It's pretty straightforward, but happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
All right, let's start out with thank you, Hillary. Councilmember Bedina, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you, Hillary, for this. I think this makes a lot of sense from kind of my knowledge of use of the park. I think that that primary parking lot fills up pretty quickly, and you really see the overflow when there are major events or something like that happening. One question I do have is I believe that most of the time on that map, there was kind of the drive out to Platt Road. I think most of the time that is closed. Is there a plan for that to be open at some point for people to be able to access the park that way?
Yes, so I believe that, when this was going to be paved, that would, I believe, extend out there. Honestly, sorry, I'm taking it over a bit here from Adam, but Josh, that's correct.
Yeah, I can jump in on that. Yes, I mean, the eventual plan is, as we complete all of this, that there will be opening that back up. Part of the reason that it was closed is it became very quickly a cut through from Platt to Ellsworth. So as we look at it, looking at what kind of what can we do to slow that down? What can we do to prevent it? As we look to do that alternate one, that'll be part of that project. Ideally, all of it needs to be done, which is why we're bringing this to PAC. But at some point, that's kind of as we move that continued forward, and that'll be the plan to get that done at that point.
So we'll likely keep it closed before it gets paved.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then with the paving of the sidewalk, I know part of the intention was to make sure that kind of folks over in those neighborhoods and developments over on Platt would have access. And so it looks like, according to this map, that the sidewalk goes all the way out to Platt and would give them access that way.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah.
Looks in that way. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Alexa, please go ahead.
Thanks for this presentation and also the great work in kind of putting together, I think, the puzzle that is completing this park with the various funding sources. I was curious when you mentioned sort of some of the requirements that came with ARPA, whether, Davis-Bacon wages or other accounting might be in some of that cost. Just as we're thinking about the next phase 3, whether other sources might open up other opportunities or, just to understand maybe how other sources could help fill that gap going forward.
Yeah, so ARPA funds are really interesting because they try to make it easy for communities to use the funds. And as we know, Davis-Bacon, which is actually very similar to the city's prevailing wage policy, requires a lot of additional work. So Davis-Bacon actually doesn't apply to ARPA funds. There's also fewer kind of environmental processes they have to go through. Again, that was just to make it easy for communities to get projects out the door. So so it's nice that we don't have quite the same level of restrictions that usually come with federal funds. Other than, still wanting to do the low bid, which is pretty traditional for federal projects and state projects.
Yeah. And one of the things that we were looking at, we're very specific in our alternates because by doing alternate two, one of the things that really helps us with is some of the ADA accessibility in the report at Southeast area or at Bicentennial Park. So it really is a great opportunity that we could do these two, because getting from a really nice parking lot to the splash pad, going over sidewalks that aren't great wouldn't be preferred. So this really just made sense because we had to do all of this work eventually anyways, regardless of the splash pad, regardless of the playground, that parking lot, those sidewalks all needed to be done. So having the 400,000 from ARPA that was reallocated by council really helps us move this project forward.
All right, other questions about this one? If not, we have in our packet a resolution in support of this contract. And do we have a motion to approve that resolution?
Make a motion to approve the resolution.
Thank you, Alexa. Do we have a second? I see Vince. Thank you. Any further discussion about this resolution? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the resolution, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I don't see any. So the motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Hillary and Josh, and looking forward once again to seeing a lot of work next year, in the coming year at Bicentennial Park.
Thank you all.
All right, that brings us to item 9 on our agenda, which is land acquisition closed session. And so the procedure is we leave here. I believe we have a motion to go into closed session. And then we'll go, we've got the link that was emailed to us. And then when that's concluded, we will come back here. So
I move to go into closed session.
thank you, Ruth. Do we have a second? Sorry, I can't see everybody. Thank you, Vince. All in favor of going into closed session, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries, so we will leave here and meet at the other link. And if anyone has a question about it, I think get in touch with Juliet. main session? To our main session, and do we have a motion resulting from the lack?
Yes, I motion to decline city acquisition of fee titled 4.41 acres of property identified in application ID 202407.
Thank
I
you,
second.
Rachel. Thank you, Ruth. Seconded. Any further discussion on this matter? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion to approve the resolution? Please raise your hand or say aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, Hannah. So motion carries. All right, so that concludes the land acquisition matter and brings us to our second public commentary period. Do we have any speakers? Any callers?
Actually, we do have somebody in
Oh.
the attendees area. If
No,
you would
we're
like to-
Juliet, we're good. It's a staff person.
Hey, no callers.
All right. Thank you very much. We have communications in our packet for your review, and so that brings us to the end of our agenda, and so we stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody. I know, I guess Hillary's not on, but again, I'd like to just convey, Josh, again, congratulations on completing that Gallup Park Bridge. That's a pretty monumental project to be completing. So please pass that on to her.
Will do. Thank you so much.
And yeah, thanks, everybody. Good to see you all, and we'll see you next month.
Bye.